Hey, what's going on, guys? Today's video we're going to be taking a look at something a little bit different. This is actually a 3D metal puzzle kit from Mecrob. So Mecrob reached out to me and asked if I'd want to take a look at one of their puzzle kits here. So it's sort of like an erector set, if you guys remember those from back in the day. But imagine it's sort of like a modern steampunk version where like the theme of these is that it's supposed to look like it's made out of just like scrap leftover hardware parts. So they look pretty cool. There's a bunch of different ones that they have there on their website. I'll of course have a link down in the video description below. The one that I selected that I wanted to take a look at for today's video is called Minerva's Mercy, and it's like this mecha spider looking thing. We're gonna build it up and see how it looks, and then I do also want to try some like customization on it as well, maybe add some extra like plastic parts and stuff from my scrap parts. We'll get to all that later. Let's go ahead and first just start off by taking a look at the packaging and all the product inside. All right, so as you can see, we got this nice box, which is not necessarily very large, but it is quite heavy. There is going to be a lot of parts in here, I can tell, and on the side you can see just a sticker of what's included, and the assembled size is going to be 28 by 23 by 16 centimeters, so it is going to be quite large actually once it's all put together. Assembly time is 13 hours. We'll see about that. I think it might take probably a little bit more, a little bit less, depending on how it goes. The pieces are 828 pieces, so quite a lot of pieces in here. Weight is 0.67 kilograms, and I believe that we don't need any tools other than what's included in here, so I think, but we'll see. I assume if we need anything, it's going to be maybe like a screwdriver or something, which I have, so that's not a big deal, but I don't know if it actually includes the pieces or not. But so we have two instruction manuals here. This is the guidelines for part A, guidelines for part B, and as you can see inside here we have two boxes. So there's part A, and this one also says part A, but let's see, maybe there's actually more boxes underneath, I don't know. Yeah, right, so we have part A and part A, a smaller box, and then part B is gonna be this other small box. So there's actually three boxes inside here. This one definitely feels the heaviest, but this one's the largest, but actually the lightest. So I'm guessing this is probably maybe like the clear plastic parts that we can see that are kind of like part of the design. And just to take a look through the instruction manual here, let's see what we got inside. So some safety guidelines, some tools needed. So it looks like we are going to need some sharp nose pliers and a screwdriver. And then we've got some typical safety warnings, assembly instructions here. It advises to check all the parts first before you begin assembly, just to make sure that everything that you need is included, because there are a lot of parts, almost 1,000 for this particular kit, and they do kind of vary in size. This is probably a medium-sized kit, I would say, as they do have some that are smaller and some that are larger. Here we have the item guide for part A, and as you can see, we've got a bunch of little parts there. And here's how the assembly is going to look. And it looks like everything is going to be all in color and pretty straightforward as far as like the layout of everything. I mean, I think because I build Gunpla and model kits all the time, for me, this is going to be not too difficult. If you're the kind of person who's not used to building a lot of model kits or anything, this looks like a very extreme version of like an IKEA furniture assembly, and you may be feeling like it's overwhelming, but I think that the way the instructions are laid out, it's pretty straightforward because it's really only like a handful of pieces at a time. It's not like packing too much onto the page. That could be the issue I would like foresee, which would make instructions for something like this being too complicated for some people if there was like way too much information packed onto each page. But it seems like each page features, just a manageable amount of doing only a handful of parts at a time. So, but there is going to be a lot of parts. I think probably the biggest challenge that I'm anticipating is just managing all the parts, keeping everything organized during assembly, so I'm not having to search and search and search to try to find this one part that I can't find that I need. I think that's probably going to be the biggest challenge, but otherwise it does look relatively simple. And just to kind of see what's covered here in part B, this one looks like it's going to be maybe like the head unit of the spider, which I believe we have some LEDs in here as well. And so you can see we've got some more stuff going on. So yeah, this is like the head and the eyes and stuff that we have. So like the light's going to be coming out of there, I guess. So here at the end is the final display showing you like some renders of what the thing is going to look like when it's all said and done. You have a congratulations message with a QR code and then images of a couple of other different products that they have available. So let's go ahead and just pop open one of these boxes here just to kind of get a sense of what the contents are like. And it's just a bunch of little bags. So this is, like I said, it's going to be a challenge just keeping everything organized, because we just have a lot of these little parts baggies. And as you can see here, there's quite a lot of them. I also really didn't know what to make of this bit in the instructions, and I thought it was kind of joking where it says tips and tricks, calm down, do not be scared, torturing XX, torture the XX, relieve the pressure of assembly. I thought, like, is that something that's going to actually be included? Turns out it is something that is actually included in here, so I guess if you get frustrated, you can take this little guy here. It's sort of like a stress ball, right? You can just mess with this. So I will keep that on hand, although, like I said, I anticipate not being really too frustrated other than the fact of just trying to get all this stuff organized. So let me go ahead and work on that first, and then we'll see how the assembly starts going. And actually, before we get into that, I do want to pop open the other box A, because like I said, it does seem to be something very different in this one, as it's very light, and as you can see, it's just this one piece here, or like the main clear part, which almost is like made to look like a light bulb, essentially, kind of on the back side of the spider. And if we take this out, it is packaged very carefully, and it is essentially like an LED light bulb. Looks like it's just a regular USB-C charge port there for that, so that's pretty nice. I don't know if we have an included cable. Let me see. Okay, after going through and putting everything in this box in order, that should make the organization a little bit easier. I did find the USB cable here for this, and so let's go ahead and check that out. It's in a nice black braided cable, which looks really nice, and as you can see, there's how that's going to plug in. Let's go ahead and try this out. Switching this on, and okay, wow, okay, that's pretty cool. It's not actually an LED lamp, but it does actually look like how it looks in the images, and it's one of those supposed to look like an electrical kind of little thing there, and then when you touch it, yeah, when you touch it, it like sends like the electricity like to like where your finger's touching the bulb kind of thing. Forget what they're called anyway. I used to see them at like the Spencer's Gifts and stuff like that. But I guess that's pretty cool. Definitely a lot more interesting than just a standard kind of LED light bulb. So very cool. All right, cut into the building process. Here's how it's coming along. I just wanted to take this moment to kind of show you how I'm going through the building process and kind of what are some tips and things that I've learned along the way so far. So far, looking pretty cool here, as you can see. Basically just have all the legs on. Well, if you guys are astute at counting, you'll notice I do have one more leg to add on, and I'm gonna show you how to do that here in just a moment. I've also put some tape with some numbers on here. That's because you need to kind of keep track of which leg is which, and if you're not like focusing really closely, you might get them mixed up. So just in order to not be confused, I can probably take the tape off now, but just to make sure that I didn't get them confused, which one's which, because they are like slightly different, the left and the right side and everything. So I just put that little masking tape on there so I wouldn't get them mixed up. And then the manual recommended to use a screwdriver and like needle nose pliers, but I'm finding just like a small set of pliers like this works well too if you need to hold a bolt in place while you're screwing it. Also been using a small socket wrench as well too. I felt has been helpful at some points. So actually, these are the 3 tools I would recommend using. And one thing that I would absolutely recommend you guys to do while you're going through the building process on this is make sure everything is very, very tight, because I've actually had to, I was going through the building process and I didn't have everything like really real tight. And then once I was like putting the legs on and noticing like, oh, it actually can't like hold up the weight. It was not the legs, I didn't have them tightened enough that it was just like falling flat. And I didn't want to have to end up later having to like glue things in place. So I had to go back and go through and take some parts off and like put the parts on again to make sure that everything was really, really tight on there. So make sure you want stuff to be able to move, like this, for example, like the claw, I can move it, but it's pretty tight here. I can actually probably tighten this a little bit more. You don't want it to be so tight that it's immovable. I guess you could do that if you had like a particular pose in mind, and that may be a good idea once you have everything all together to go back and like really tighten everything up so it's like really locked into place. But let's go ahead and check out the instructions here for attaching our 8th and final leg. Again, up here is showing the parts that we need, starting with L61. We need 1 of those. And again, I've got these in order, so we'll go to LS6, and then I'm placing a marker in here is good, because that way you can like put it back real easily. So pull out 1 of those, set that there. You can easily put this right back there. XP. Up next, we need 2 of these. And we're gonna go up here to E17 right here. This also happens to be the last of E17, so I'm gonna go ahead and take that out of the box. All right, so we got all the pieces here for this step. One other thing too I'll point out to you guys is that this glass bulb is not like fixed in there. It actually fell out at one point, and so just one thing to be cautious of with that But let's go ahead and follow the instructions here for this one. So it's orientated like this here in the manual. We move things around a little bit so you guys can hopefully see. So we're going to take our long screw through XP washer here. That's going to go through there, and then we kind of have to hold this in place. Well, next we put on the other XP washer, that E17 part, this M3 part there, this other washer, then our leg, which I kind of need to try to hold in place. So it becomes a little bit of a juggling act here for a minute until we can get the nut on here. Go ahead and screw this on. And then I'm just gonna tighten that up really good, because especially with this being the legs, I mean, it being like a load-bearing part of the kit, you want it to be really, really tight. I mean, I guess for some of the other parts, it doesn't need to be like so super tight. All right, and so it's coming along. I'm gonna go ahead and continue the construction, and then we'll come back. All right, after a little bit more time, here it is all put together. Really, really interesting looking. And then there's a few things that I want to talk about with this and just kind of the final stages of it. And I will show you guys how it's going to look lit up again. But I do want to do some more customization on this. So this top part was pretty interesting. You have these little parts right here that kind of hold in this crystal, which is just kind of fitting sort of somewhat loosely in there. So that looks pretty cool. You have these like tube parts here, which will channel light. So you have a light inside this part right there, and that will be channeled through this wire. And then these parts right here, you have 1, 2, 3 LED lights here at the front. Now these are the type that you just screw, like you tighten to turn them on. Right now I don't have the batteries in here, so let me throw the batteries into one of these to show you guys what that's gonna look like. All right, after getting the battery in there, once we tighten that down, you can see it's gonna light up like that, and it will change colors too, kind of like the back end there. So it rotates cycles between colors, which is pretty cool. And so you can imagine what that's going to look like here with the basically 5 of these, the ones on the side channeling the light, the 3 in the front. So it's going to look really cool. I'm not going to put all the batteries in and turn all of them on right now because we're not quite done with this thing. There is some more that I want to do with it. So a couple things to point out. There is also this like piece of sort of chrome looking thin plastic that's actually meant to wrap around that thick, dark black part of the base, kind of where the bulb plugs into. It's meant to wrap around there to give it a kind of chrome metallic look to match the rest of the piece. Since I'm going to be painting it, I just left that off, just so it'd be much easier to just paint directly onto that plastic there. Also, you'll notice, aside from these clear tube parts that I'm going to have to remove before painting, I'm also just going to cover the LEDs as well, just with a little masking tape. There's also some clear parts like this little like level piece here. This one also just tends to fall out kind of easily too. So some of these parts you may want to just go ahead and glue into place. There's not too many of those. Most everything is like screwed into place with all these screws and everything. But there's a couple of bits like these parts, and then there's a couple more of these actually on like the base of the head. So the way that this is made is so that this whole like top section here is actually just held on to the main body just by a magnet right there. It just kind of fits into place and is magnetized down. But there's a couple of those like little plastic levels on the bottom side of that part too. You might want to just go ahead and glue those in. But for my purposes anyway, for painting, I'm going to have to cover those up. So I'm going to mask them. I'm going to glue those parts, mask that. There's also a couple of clear parts like here on the leg. I'm going to wrap some masking tape around there to preserve these like clear bits so you can see like the spring inside there. And then obviously for painting, going to take out that crystal in the top and then take off the bulb at the back and cover that up and everything. So just going to paint all of this. But one more thing that I'll point out to you guys, this set does actually come with tools. So in the manual we saw that it requires like needle nose pliers like this and a screwdriver, and I thought that I had to use my own. It did actually include a set of them, but the bag that these were in was actually in part 2, so I think that's a bit of an oversight in that it doesn't say in the manual clearly that it comes with these, and then if it's going to come with them, they should be packaged with like the part A set so that you find them right away. Because these were in the section for section 2, I didn't find them till, I was at least halfway done with the entire thing. So nice that these were included. They didn't end up being all that helpful for me. But let me talk a little bit what I want to do with this. So here I've got just a wood block base that I'm going to use for this. I have the sides masked off to preserve the wood. And then I've got some old plastic parts here just from like an old ice maker from a refrigerator that I've got all cleaned up, and these I want to just use to kind of build up a sort of base kind of diorama here. And then what I'll do is set this on top of here and make it so that the wire connecting for like the LED will go down through the base and everything, so it'll be able to be plugged in and all that. So it'll look pretty cool. So for right now, I'm going to work on getting all these pieces set onto the base and get to painting, and then we'll come back and kind of see how it's looking. I do also want to maybe add some like plastic pieces onto this as well. So some sort of like armor looking pieces maybe sort of on there. So let's go ahead and get to work. All right, here we go. And as you can see, I've got some surfacer sprayed on here. I've got the base kind of done. As you can see, it kind of spread those parts out to make it look like a kind of mechanical sort of structure that our spider is crawling across, and then also added some parts here on the spider. With it all coated with this black surfacer, gonna make it a little bit hard for you guys to make it out. And then obviously I've got the bulb removed. That's just gonna fit back there, be something sort of like that. But you can see I added a few plastic parts on here, kind of antenna. I added some more kind of spikes to the kind of mouth area, and so added a few bits, but with it being all black, going to be kind of hard to see. And as you can see, it didn't get like a really good coat of surfacer over everything, just because there's a whole lot of nooks and crannies and everything. This is just with the spray can surfacer. I'm now going to go in with the brush and using some SMS surfacer black and just brush some more surfacer on this. Also just to give it like a good second coat of surfacer, because I really don't know how well the surfacer and or paint is going to stick to the metal, and then that plastic too, because that plastic from those refrigerator parts is not polystyrene plastic, but definitely seems like a bit more kind of oily kind of plastic, if that makes sense. I'm not exactly sure what type of plastic it is or what's the best way to describe it. So pretty sure the paint's going to be chipping off that really easily. So I want to give it a good coat of surfacer just to try to make sure the paint is going to stick as much as possible. And then I'll go in and be painting on it. And I basically kind of want it to be set all in place so that once I go in and do the painting, I don't need to move anything else, so there's not any risk of scratching anything. But here's how it's looking at the moment. It's not really too much to see to show you guys, so let me go ahead and continue on with the painting. And then I guess we'll probably just come back and take a look at the final product. All right, and here is the finished product, almost. So all the painting's done, and also some weathering and top coat on there. Now we're all good to go, but now's the really fun, exciting, and also often scary part, where I now have to go in and remove the masking tape. So all like the clear bits on here are masked, and also we're going to add our bulb back on and add it back in the batteries and also like the clear tubing parts. So gotta take off all the masking tape, also all the masking tape on the base. Now one thing that was interesting for the painting of this, the regular black spray can surfacer that I used on this did not really work very well. It wasn't sticking to the metal, it wasn't sticking to the plastic parts that I was using for the base at all. So I had to actually go out and get like some industrial strength surfacer. And this is what I ended up using, some Krylon specialty bonding primer, fusion technology. So yeah, anyway, this stuff did the job. I still feel like the paint's, if I intentionally try to scratch it, the paint's still probably gonna scratch off there, because there's only so much that you can do, but this is definitely working a lot better. So I had to spray it with this, which is white, then had to spray it again with the black surfacer, and then paint on top of that, and it worked out pretty well. I was actually painting this red color at first, and I was planning on doing more colors, but then I was just kind of really liking how this looked in red. I did add a little bit of this like color stripe up there, painted like the spring details in a kind of light beige color there, added the one decal, but didn't really want to like load it up with a bunch of decals necessarily. And I ended up really liking just how this red color looked, and just kind of wanted to stick with just like the one main color for this. Gives it that sort of like red oxide kind of look to it, which I think looks kind of interesting. Now it looks almost a little bit more, especially with like these parts I added around like the mouth, looks a little bit more like some sort of crab necessarily than a spider, but maybe once we add the bulb back onto the back end of that, it'll look a bit more like a spider again. But let's go ahead and take off some of this masking tape here, and actually let's start on the base, make sure that my base is still okay. Okay, everything came off without a hitch. I got all the lights on and they're working. The tubes actually work really well. Those light tubes, you can see they kind of like cycle through, so they kind of actually go off, and then this one will come back on again if I turn it around the other side. They do seem to be sort of in sync at the moment, although there's nothing really to sync them unless you like try to turn them all at the same time, which I think would be hard to do. But yeah, those actually work quite well. And then you've got the crystal up there on the top, and I want to plug in the main light, but the problem is, of course, that to have this rotating around on my base, it's got to be plugged into a USB port. So how I have it, just have the USB cable, which is able to be just like tied up here underneath. What I did over here, I actually cut a little bit here at the very bottom of the base so that the wire can be threaded out through the back of the base there, and then we can plug it in. So I'm just not going to be able to have the light on while this is rotating around, but here I'll plug it in just so you guys can see how that looks. It looks really cool. I'll just kind of hand by hand turn this around a little bit so you can kind of see it from different angles, but it looks really cool there as we can see it there now, like in full effect. Really happy with how this came out. It was a really fun project. And then just on the note of like the added plastic parts that I added onto there, obviously, like I said, I added those parts like around kind of the mouth to give it some more like spiky bits around there. And then like the larger parts of armor that I added like towards the front and then mostly towards the back were just some leftover parts. If you can't tell what kit those are from, those are from actually a master grade. It's a mix of master grade Dom and master grade Gelgoog parts, like the big parts for like those sort of wing looking parts, which I think actually ended up, wasn't really thinking this at the time. I was just thinking that they kind of fit pretty well, but now looking at it, I think they work really well with like the whole bug aesthetic, because they sort of look like shell sort of wings, like a beetle's wings, or kind of shell parts there on the backside of that. So it works out really well. And actually, I think those parts that I ended up choosing actually fit the design quite nicely. And then just a few other kind of like antenna sort of looking parts and things added around the top, just a couple of plastic bits just made for a couple of nice added bits of custom detail just to make it a little bit more unique. That's one thing that I wanted to do with this. When first Mecrob asked me if I would be interested in reviewing one of their products, one of the things that I wanted to do was that I wanted to be able to make it a custom of my own. And so they said, absolutely, go for it. We love that idea. And so it was really important for me to be able to take this and make it my own. And I'm really happy that I did. I mean, the product, just straight out of the box, just built up. It's really cool looking, just with all the kind of metallic look to it and everything. But if you do want to go the route of getting one of these and painting it for yourself, as I showed just a moment ago, I would use that bonding primer on it. Make sure you cover up all your clear parts or whatever you want to cover up if you want to maintain the clear parts. And then some of the other sets have different amounts of clear parts, less or more, and that's just something you have to look at. Just taking a look at the different sets that they have available there on the website. But yeah, you can absolutely customize these with additional parts. There's actually a bunch of leftover metal parts too, just from this set too, additional like screws and nuts and things like that. You have a lot of leftovers, so you can customize it with those, or you can add plastic parts here like I did. You can paint it, and so there's a lot of cool stuff that you can do with these. You don't have to just build it just as it is. But anyway, guys, again, if you wanted to check out some of the products for yourself, the link will be in the video description, also in the pinned comment, so make sure to use that. And again, thank you to Mecrob for reaching out and sending me this. It was a fun project, really unique project, and I do enjoy working on stuff that's just very unique like this, sort of making custom repainted like products, not necessarily just like a model kit. Even though this is a model kit, it's definitely a little bit different from your standard type of model kit that I'm used to dealing with. So anytime I get the opportunity to get creative with something that's a little bit different from what I typically work on, I enjoy it quite a bit. And so this was a fun project. Anxious to know what you guys think about this. Let me know in the comments down below. What do you think about the product in general? And then what do you think about my custom work here on it? Share your thoughts. And as always, guys, thank you so much for all of your support, leaving a like, making sure they're subscribed. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for all your support. Till next time, hope you all have a great day. See you guys later. Bye-bye.